when Jupiter moves into the 17th degree of Aries, the two prim spinsters, we're going to see pretty much the opposite principle of what we looked at in 16. Because whereas in 16, we're looking out into nature for very subtle energies, in 17, the prim spinsters, they don't want any of that. They want to turn within and to find the secret of life within their own personal feelings, which are found and eventually uncovered and discovered in time by living the same safe, simple routine, rather like a monk in some ways.
Jupiter is moving into Aries 17, two prim spinsters. Let me read from the Sabian Alchemy book. Turning within to experience our true selves. When we lack potency in the outer world, it is helpful to turn within and deepen our inner world of peaceful grace. This is also an aspect of potency, but strengthens a more passive aspect of self, being rather than doing. Engagement with others is often draining, even dangerously so. At times, retreat is entirely appropriate. So, when we left Jupiter, we were in Aries degree 16, brownies dancing in the setting sun. And what came up for me was almost a Dionysian mystery cult ritual. And that's going to leave you with a bit of a hangover, even if it's just a spiritual hangover. You might need some time to look inward after something like that. This contrasting degree comes in, two prim spinsters. And now we have a situation where we have two people, typically a spinster is seen as an older, unmarried woman. These kind of things are changing in society, but in the time when this Sabian symbol was intuited, it would have been a woman who gave up on the idea of marital life. It was just something that she didn't want to deal with, but she's found a companion, a second spinster, and they live together with this sort of primness. And I see this as a secondary path to attainment, which is the expression we're currently in, a more aesthetic practice of looking inward. I've talked to women who have entered Zen monasteries, and that's sort of what this reminds me of. One woman that I met, it was later in life. She just wanted that sense of order in the Zen monastery. They would ring a bell when it was time for breakfast, ring a bell when it was time for meditation. And she really appreciated being able to live her life, not having to worry about anything, even having these bells to direct her what her next activity would be. And with these two prim spinsters, they get to live a secluded life where they have total control of every aspect of their environment. And this is different than Aries 16, brownies dancing in the setting sun, where you're giving yourself up to the spontaneity of the living world, teeming with organisms that you're just going to have to go with, you're just going to have to improv with. And that's a way to achieve attainment. And I would even say that that's a way to achieve attainment that Jupiter can really get behind. Now Jupiter is moving into a different type of attainment that it's telling the planet to sort of sit, be still, think inwardly. That almost sounds like something Saturn would do, the planet of contraction. So this is going to be an interesting tension for Jupiter to move through. But of course, there's much to be gained with thinking inward. Going back to the passage, it says, this is also an aspect of potency, strengthening the passive aspect of self, of being rather than doing. And so, we've been focusing on having a Jupiter project that you're working through because this is a 12-year cycle. And what sort of project you want to make those 12 years about, working with Jupiter. And this is sort of a time to kind of sit with the direction you're expanding towards. And does that feel okay? Does that feel safe? I think people who seek out a life of seclusion, they might be the type of person, especially with the word prim in here, who just like things their own way. And they, maybe earlier in life, they were more willing to go with the flow and do what other people wanted to do, but they just want to do things their own way. And there's really nothing wrong with that. And, turning within, we find out what our true self is. But, as we're moving through these degrees, we're going to be moving next into Aries 18, an empty hammock. And this is going to be a degree that reconciles the two that preceded it. Finding out the rhythms. When does it make sense to seek attainment through euphoria and ecstatic interaction with the beings around you? And when does it make more sense to look within and cultivate a sense of seclusion and a sense of, turning down an invitation because you simply want to spend the night with your knitting needles, which is, spinster, comes from the word spin, which means spinning wool. And this is really interesting because, we had Aries 15, an Indian weaving a blanket, and you were learning how to weave from the infinite plane into the physical plane. And then with brownies dancing in the setting sun, through your enthusiasm to engage, you begin to examine the thread and see the specks of individual energy that seems to just be exuding from everything. That's what the world, the framework of the world is built with, is that joy that's exuding from almost like these infinitesimal creatures that are just dancing. And the brownies represent that, at least to me. And then we go into spinster, and it's still someone who is spinning wool, which then becomes woven. So we're still dealing with this fabric motif. And it just kind of shows that there's this element of weaving, of going in and out of the holes as you're weaving things. And I think it's showing that in order to achieve attainment, which we're trying to do in this current stage of Jupiter, you have to go in and out. You have to be able to work with dark and light, conscious and unconscious. And so working with these two principles of ecstatic euphoria and asceticism, with this degree focusing on the asceticism, that's what we're going to be really cultivating with this, the second half of Aries, known as potency.